Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing, as the Toronto Argonauts win their season opener 35-27 over the BC Lions in what was a thrilling game that came right down to the finish. Before we get into the recap today, I want to tell you a little bit about Something in the Water. It was great to see so many listeners down there today. We had an event pre-game. There was food, there were drinks, there's Longboat Pale Ale, and if you haven't tried this yet as a Toronto Argonauts fan, you have to try Longboat Pale Ale. It is the beer that was brewed for fans of the Double Blue, and it's got a great taste. You have to get out there. Something in the Water Brewing in Liberty Village. Next home game against the Edmonton Elks, maybe you can make your way down there pre-game. JB, let's get into it. Oh, and if you don't know already, my name is Ben Grant, he's JB, and we are going to recap this wild opener for the Toronto Argonauts. JB, first impressions, did you foresee an 8-point BC Lions loss? Because I seem to remember picking the Toronto Argonauts earlier this week. Which team did you pick?
I did not. I felt like they were not going to be able to move the ball well enough, and really they did. I have to say I was really impressed with Dukes all night.
He looked fantastic. His numbers on the night: 21 of 27 for 254, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Those are not the numbers I expected. I did think this would be a Toronto Argonauts win, but not because of huge numbers like that.
No, and those are not fake numbers, where like he has 2 85-yard passes, building it up. That's consistent 10, 15-yard routes, keeping his eyes open, looking downfield, running when he had to, not when he couldn't find something, being patient in the pocket. Look, it was a very, it was not a star performance, but it was a very good professional performance, and if that's what they're getting from Duke, then this defense, with a few things tightened up, is going to be able to win more than its fair share of the first 9 games.
Let's talk about Dukes' performance first, and then we'll kind of roll through what we saw on both sides of the ball. So for Cameron Dukes, first of all, like you said, those numbers are very real. The completion percentage really high. There weren't a lot of checkdowns. There were some. He was taking smart matchups a couple times where he had Kadeem Carey or he had Deontay McMahon. One of those running backs lined up with Ben Hladek, for example. He would take that every time. That makes sense. So the touchdown to Kadeem Carey, that first touchdown pass, that made sense. He had. I think it was a defensive end that was trying to cover Kadeem Carey. So yeah, take that matchup. But it wasn't just like he was checking down all the time. And they didn't even run those receiver screens that we've seen a billion times in this Toronto Argonauts offense. They didn't run them. It wasn't that type of game.
No, I thought it was a very well designed game plan. A bunch of low crossers, which are fantastic. I think it's such a great weapon for an offense, the low crosser, which is a nice touch pass that he made a couple of times. He had some good in the middle of the field, on the hash marks, posts, which are, not easy throws. Like he made a couple of real, big boy throws, I guess I would call it, a professional throw. He is still, and I have always said this about him, he is still great in the red zone. He lets plays develop. He's incredibly calm in the red zone. And to be honest, I thought they probably left some yards on the ground if they wanted to run more option with him.
Yeah, and that's something that they can maybe look at the film and see later, because he was so good at sort of those option-type passes, but there were a few times where he could have pulled and run, where he had Kadeem Carey lined up on his right, where he looks like he's reading the DN, but really it's just a give to Kadeem Carey. But every time he gave it and rolled out, he had space. Now, a few times they passed out of that, not looking to run, but those passes, he was 3 for 3 calling that play, twice with guys wide open, and then another time where he was just on the money. It was an absolutely perfect throw, I think, to Brissett. No, it was to Polk on the sideline. And Polk was in tight coverage, but Dukes is so good at throwing on the run, especially to his right, that's just a really high percentage play. I think you're going to see more plays off of that because he does run that so well. But I think a few times he could have taken off. And let's not forget to add in his rushing numbers. So Dukes ended up with 5 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown to add to the great game he had through the air. So great game all around from Cameron Dukes. Now, one big mistake that I thought in the beginning may have cost them.
I think the fact that he didn't allow that to sink him, to destroy his confidence, to have him try and do too much to make up for it. I think all of that goes to him being properly prepared. And again, full credit. You gave it, and I didn't think it was going to happen, but I think Coach Dinwiddie had he understands what Dukes does, and this game plan was one designed for Dukes. And they clearly do know what he is good at, and he knows that they have confidence in him. It was really impressive to watch that they were able to overcome really what is just a mistake from trying too hard, which is often what happens with young backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, trying to do too much. And if you don't know the play that we're talking about, Dukes rolled out to his right. This is in the second quarter now. Toronto was down by a touchdown. Dukes rolls out to his right. They had just, actually it was the first play after BC had taken a touchdown lead. Dukes rolls out to his right. He's under pressure and he tries to spin around and break a tackle. And that's one of those situations where you're not getting out of that tackle. He was wrapped up, and by spinning around, the ball ended up coming free. It gets picked up. It's a scoop and score for BC. And suddenly, after being behind by 6 points that whole first quarter, now BC has a 2-touchdown lead. And I was saying to my broadcast partner, Mike Hogan, in the booth, we were talking about how this will be key to see how Dukes comes out there and responds, because for the most part, young quarterbacks in that situation will now try and do everything themselves. They're saying to themselves, man, I just cost my team. I made a mistake. I've got to go get that back on this play. And he didn't. And I actually really wanted Coach Dinwiddie to call a running play to start that drive just to settle him. But he went right to the air and it was a completed pass, as most of them were tonight. And he was just cool. He never lost his cool and never panicked. And he fought his way back. And before you knew it, Toronto had the lead and we were going to the fourth quarter. So just an excellent game, and one that I think will only increase Cameron Dukes' confidence going forward, because how could it not against the team that some people, actually I think most people, are saying are favorites to get to the Grey Cup. The Grey Cup in Vancouver this year, people are picking the BC Lions. That is the trendy pick, and Toronto just beat them by 8 points. Came from behind with Cameron Dukes.
Exactly. I think you're looking at Cameron Dukes, your Hamilton Tiger Cats 2025 starting quarterback.
I can't even think about this yet. But Cameron Dukes, let's keep him in Toronto for right now. JB, 21 of 27, 254, 3 touchdowns. But yeah, that's been the theme: poaching guys off Toronto's roster, and they're still a good team at the end of the day. There's no Adarius Pickett, there's no AJ Olette, there's no Dwayne Hendricks, there's no Jamal Peters, there's no Quantez Stiggers, and yet this team is still really strong. Let's get into the rushing game. What did you think of Kadeem Carey? 16 carries, 65 yards. He also had a few catches, 4 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown receiving. What do you think of Carey's performance?
Yeah, pretty good. I liked him out of the backfield. I like the catching. I think that's a really great weapon.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes guys catch out of the backfield, but it's not really there. Like, he is a nice receiver out of the backfield.
Yeah, it's a couple of times he ran those choice routes, and he's got linebackers trying to stay with him, and it's just impossible.
Yeah, a couple times there was there was one on the short yardage, and then there was another one a little later where he showed his cuts and shiftiness, that he still has gas in the tank, where he made a couple of 8-9 yard runs, which was great to see. He took some hits tonight.
Oh, he did. And one where he was just extending to get that first down. It was a crucial moment. There were at least 3 full stadium gasp hits
yes. that he took. And that is not a sustainable model.
No, but it's what I loved was the fight in him. It was a third down play where the Argos run what looks like a fake dive and then a pitch out wide. he took the pitch out wide, and everyone was out there anticipating that play, and he just sort of carved through the defense, but he had to maintain his line in order to get to the first down marker. But by maintaining the line, you've got a linebacker coming full speed this way, and it means you're going to take a heck of a hit. He knew it was coming, and I thought I said on the broadcast, actually, it looked like the Big Boss Man's finishing move, the slam. It looked like that.
He can't take hits like that over and over again.
No,
because he isn't really. When you see him, he is not a big guy.
He's not huge. He's not a small running, like he's not Deonta McMahon. I think they're
but I guess when you're used to, when you're coming from last year,
right?
He is not built to be the hammer, and I think they brought in the other back, Adebayoye, which is good. I mean, I think they're going to need to do a little more of that.
I like how they cycled Adebayoye in. Like, he didn't have any carries in the first half. It was McMahon was out there a lot. McMahon only had one carry.
Him in more. I mean, I don't think Carey. I wouldn't give. I don't. For me, Carey's not 20 carries a game. I don't think so. I would probably use him a little less and maybe a few more outside zone runs.
Yeah, he only had 16, but I know what you're saying, because that's still a heavy workload compared to like Adebayoye having 4 and McMahon having 1.
Yeah, I would bring that number down a little bit more, and I thought Adebayoye looked good. Like he does what he does, and I think like that they can spell each other off.
Yeah, he did. He ran really hard. I think I like Adebayoye in the second half when that D-line starts getting tired and you have a fresh guy that comes in. Like Adebayoye, he's such a strong runner. He's got such strong legs. He comes in at the end of the game when you're gassed already as the defensive line, and he hasn't taken a snap yet, and he just powered through. Those first 3 runs went for 19 yards, and I think his last run was the one that stopped him finally, where he only got 2. But that's a nice change of pace. I was thinking this during the game. They've got a nice combination of 3 backs who do very different things. You look at McMahon, Adebayoye, and Carey. Those guys all give you some pretty different looks, which is exciting. And I think that allows you to play around a little bit. It keeps defenses off balance, where you've been angling for this guy. Now suddenly this guy's in, and he brings to you a whole different skill set, a whole different speed, and a different playbook that kind of comes with him too, and how the Argos use him, and how Coach Dinwiddie strategizes to take advantage of the assets he brings to the table. Let's talk about the receiving core. Pretty nice game from Rasheed Bailey, 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Other than that, though, it was really spread around, and I have to give Cameron Dukes another tip of the hat, because you so often see young quarterbacks lock on to the star guy, but it wasn't just like DeVaris Daniels. Where's DeVaris Daniels? Where's DeVaris Daniels? You've got Kadeem Carey with 4 catches for 40, Dejon Brissett and a touchdown, Dejon Brissett with 3 catches for 52 and a touchdown. And then Mekhi Polk, 3 catches for 40. DeVaris Daniels, 2 catches for 27. Richie Sindani, 2 catches for 24. Tommy Neal, 2 for 21. He spread that football around so beautifully throughout the game, and the receivers were there. They all did their job. Yeah. They all had a role.
No, exactly. I think we talked about all the drops in preseason. I think what they did incredibly well is when he threw a good ball, they did not waste it. You can't waste downs the way maybe you can get away with it when you have, Chad Kelly. And, when he threw a decent ball, they never let him down. They caught it. Even Polk had a kind of a superstar catch, but, he threw good catchable balls and they never dropped any. And so I think that really helped his confidence to not throw a good ball and have it dropped.
Yeah.
So I thought their yards after catch were, they clearly were looking to support their quarterback.
And that's what happens when you hit guys on the run like that. You're going to get the most out of your yards after catch. When you got those crossers we talk about, those second level crossers, and the guy's running full speed, like on that Brissett touchdown, for example, he had Patrice Rene in coverage, who's not particularly slow or anything like that, but when you hit him on the money, it's so hard to stay with a guy like that. Crossers are, if you can be accurate on crossers and not put your receiver in danger, that's a key going forward. Teams are going to see this on film, start coming up a little bit. You don't want your receiver running a crosser into a middle linebacker, obviously, but he did it beautifully tonight, and I think he gets a lot of credit for that. He
probably will need to throw some outside the number stuff.
Yeah, he does.
But that's kind of nitpicking. I mean, look, honor is due. I've been kind of tough on him, and I thought he played, really fantastic football today. I don't think you could ask for anything more from your backup quarterback.
His best outside the numbers throw was that deep comeback to Tommy Neild, where Dukes was on the left sideline. Neild is isolated on the right side, and he runs this like 25-yard comeback route. That ball had to travel so far, he threw it like 5 yards before Neild even made his break, and that made me nervous. I hate long deep comebacks, but it was a man coverage, and so the DB's got his back turned. But that's the one that stands out in my mind. But most of the stuff was over the middle or short out wide to the running backs. And so he'll work on his spray chart. They'll take a look at that and see what they can do to address that. The offensive line, I thought, played pretty well. They did let up 2 sacks, but I will say it is more difficult to block for a guy like Dukes than it is to block for a guy like Kelly, who's more traditional, going to stand in the pocket. This line let up the fewest sacks in the league last year. 2 today. It's not a huge number, but it's more than they let up most games last year. I just think that you have to attribute to it being Cameron Dukes instead, who's going to suddenly be outside the pocket, suddenly going to step up in the pocket very differently. That makes your job as an O-line tough. I give them a lot of credit for not amassing holding penalties, because that's usually what happens when you've got a new quarterback who does break the pocket, who does step up. Often you see O-line turning to grabbing a little bit, and that didn't really happen tonight.
No, and a couple of sacks late in the game came from, jailbreaks. I mean, just like pump luck.
Yeah, I know.
And, so they're bringing 7-8 guys. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, they did send heat a few times. And I know we started with the offense. I thought, I don't know, is this an offensive win? Is it a defensive win? Is it split down the middle? Probably.
It is split down the middle. I think the defensive line won the second half.
Man, they were good.
But look, the offense got it done. I mean, the offense did get it done. Like, they made the plays they needed to. It was not a pretty win, but I don't think anything is going to be pretty in these first 9 games.
BC's a very good team. BC's offense is explosive. This defense only let up 20 offensive points, right? The other 7 was the offense's fault. That was the scoop and score. But you look at Vernon Adams' number. Vernon Adams was probably the best player on the football field tonight. He was 25 of 33 for 363, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He played some very good football, I thought. But the difference in this game was that D-line getting to him. 6 sacks they had tonight. You had Wynton McManus with a sack, Jake Serezna, Jared Brinkman, who had a huge game with 2 sacks, Flo Remalade with a sack, and Teodric Hansen with a sack as well. They just spread it around. They were all over him. And there were about 5 or 6 near sacks where Adams just got it off in time or just escaped. It could almost have been a 10-sack night for the Argos D-line. They were all over them. Just BC Lions O-line, I had concerns about coming in, and they've done nothing to quash those. But I think the Toronto Argonauts D-line was even better than I thought.
Well, even the touchdowns, really. I mean, obviously, like, they cleaned some stuff up at half because, the touchdowns were, I mean, it was hard to tell from my vantage without the TV there, but looked like buzz. I mean, there was, there was just nobody near the guy when he caught it.
See, you're too big a deal now because you're in the front row of the press box. You need to move back. Where I started a few rows back. You've got a great view of the TV screens as well, but you don't have that nice cool breeze in front of you.
No, that's true. Anyways, I was not able to see the television highlight, and and they cleaned that up, and I thought that made a lot of difference too, where they weren't getting burned as badly.
Let's talk about some of those big plays that Vernon Adams did have. So one was on a play where Derek Parrish came like this close to sacking Vernon Adams. He just managed to get the ball off somehow, and it was a perfect strike. I think that one was... I can't remember. I'm getting them confused now. I'm not even sure I know which scoring play that is. Let me just try to look that up here.
The first touchdown was like a post.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
The second one, there was like 5 Lions open.
Yeah, that's so.
Threw it in the end zone.
Let's start with the post. That was McInnes who had the skinny post. That was a 29-yard strike. But yeah, that could have been a sack. Parrish hit Adams so hard right as his fingers came off the ball, and then I thought there was going to be an issue because McManus got sort of tackled right into the goalpost. which looked really uncomfortable, but he hung onto the ball for the touchdown. The second one was a bust, and I don't know who was at fault, because I don't know if I've ever seen more guys open on a pass play. The BC Lions were running 4 verts, and 3 of those verts were like uncovered. There was no one near him.
Yeah.
When he let go of the ball, I didn't know where it was
play.
going, because I'm like, there's 3 open receivers. Which one is he throwing to? It was a huge bust, but they seemed to sort that out. That was the only bust I saw on the night. And when you're starting new corners, one bust isn't terrible. You would prefer it weren't for a giant touchdown, 50-yard touchdown, but it's not the end of the world. And then after that, they sort of clamped down. Let's talk about some of those other guys. So Leonard Johnson, first CFL start. We talked about him a lot the last couple of podcast episodes, because we were both really impressed by him. He led the team in tackles tonight. I don't think you necessarily want your starting corner to lead the team in tackles, but clearly the BC Lions wanted to pick on him. They're like, this guy's brand new to the league. We're lining him up against our best receiver. Let's go after him and see if he can play. And I thought, it's possible he was responsible for that bust. I don't know. I don't want to put him, throw him under the bus, because I really don't know, but it's possible. Other than that, I saw him react late a couple times in his zone, but for the most part, I thought he played a really solid game, and he made some huge plays down the stretch, maybe the biggest of which was that last deep pass where Vernon Adams is looking for that last gasp touchdown to try and tie this game up, and he just measured his man, McInnes, down the sideline, stayed with him, jumped at the right moment, and just made sure that pass wasn't going to be completed.
Yeah, he looked more comfortable in man than zone.
He did, yeah.
And the second look, they've lost. I mean, you look at who they've lost in terms of if you don't have Pickett and you don't have Stiggers and you're missing McFadden. I mean, that's a lot of
Jamal
physicality.
Peters. Yeah,
that you're missing out of that backfield, and that's definitely an area the backfield is going to have to get a little stronger at. Is they don't have the thumpers back there that they did before. To kind of set the tone, and that will be a bit of an adjustment for them.
What did you think of the aggressiveness of the DBs? There were 4 or 5 plays where I felt like they went for the ball where they should probably have gone for the man instead, where they went flashing in front of the receiver.
And then a couple of times where they should have got,
where they should have gone for the ball, but they waited back.
There was a late for a third down conversion that I thought should have been a pick for sure.
Were you able to hear, because there were a couple of big moments in this.
Late. It was a sideline throw.
Oh, right, yeah.
I thought that could have been a pick. I mean, they have not shown that they're a sticky hands secondary yet. I didn't love some of the choices that they made on going for picks. That may not be, their thing.
They did come away with 1 pick, Deshaun Amos, on a ball that I initially thought Royce Metier was going to pick. He undercut the receiver, but actually undercut too far, jumped up, didn't get a piece of it. I think it went off McGinnis's hands and deflected to Deshaun Amos for the interception. That was a big play in the game. But other than that, they just missed on a couple.
Was that Amos on that huge over route, like all the way across the field?
Yes. No, that was Mason Pierce, who came all the way over. The diving one at the end, do you mean? Where he dove and
not that
knocked
one
it
where
away?
the ball bounced off the BC helmet. No. But before that, there was like a deep sideline pass, and somebody was running like a deep over, and it looked like, I thought it was Amos that tracked his guy all the way across the field. It was a...
Oh, yeah, I know the play you're talking about. That was on Hollins, and Hollins had to come out afterwards because he just ran like 150 yards on his route. Yeah, and he stayed with him. Yeah, he stayed with him the entire way, which is
amazing.
Is saying something. He's got great speed. He can fly.
Yeah,
and
he played really well.
To dig it in there, and Pierce with that huge play again at the end. That this could have gone either way, because this was Hollins for about a 45-yard completion. BC was going for 3rd and 22 from their own 1, and Adams escapes the pocket somehow gets the ball away. If Pierce doesn't dive full out, extending to knock that ball away, that's a catch to Hollins for not only a first down, but it actually would put them at midfield, and they were only trailing by a point at that stage, right? Or 2 points by that stage. And so that could have been a huge difference maker, but yeah, Mason Pierce made a big play there. What did you think of, or did you maybe get a better explanation than we did? There were 2 calls I was wondering about. So,
Joe, are you talking about the overturn out of bounds?
So the overturn out of bounds. So it looked like the receiver bobbled the ball. Like that one is the one I'm talking about. Where it was a bobbled catch. It looked like he was bobbling the ball. I'm not even sure he got the first foot down.
No.
If there was a bobble, he didn't get any feet for sure. Was there? Did you hear any explanation as to why that call on the field stood?
No, I guess it's fine because they very quickly dismissed the next challenge.
Yeah, well, I guess so. But Coach Dinwiddie has no manner of luck whatsoever.
I don't understand that at all. It looked like his foot was clearly a foot out of bounds.
And he caught the ball between his bicep and his forearm, and then it bounced up again, and he seemed to secure it.
Yeah.
But
no, I don't know.
I don't
understand what happened there.
And then the other one was that a in the grasp whistle when Vernon Adams fumbled at his own 1 yard line. So he was sacked and let go of the ball before he was brought down. The Argos jumped on it right away, and they were all pointing, "It's our ball, it's our ball." And the referees just spotted it, and that was it. And there was a delay, and we thought, is the command center reviewing it? But there was nothing. I have to assume, and I think it was the correct call, but I have to assume that the referees blew that play as soon as Adams got wrapped up. And so the early whistle, and it's the correct whistle. You should blow the whistle when the quarterback's wrapped up by three guys. But that's what I assume happened there. But I didn't get an explanation of that, and so we were wondering in the booth what the result of that was. Special teams was not the strength we thought it would be today. You have Liram Hajrullahu, who missed 2 extra points, which is really unlike him. He's so reliable generally, and I know we talked about field goal kickers and dealing with chips in the ball, and there's no chip in the ball tonight or anymore if the kickers don't want it. But maybe this is the effect of having kicked with a ball that did have a chip in it all preseason. I don't know if that plays into it a little bit. There was a wind. One of those misses was with the wind, one against. It just seems so out of character for a guy who just never misses to miss 2 extra points of all things.
I did not love the ball off his foot tonight at all. I didn't like it. I didn't like the ball off his foot. I made some good field goals. I thought that was fine, but I didn't feel like he was hitting it clean. And I didn't feel Haggerty was hitting it clean either.
Oh, see, I thought Haggerty got a hold of a couple really nice ones. That one that went like 58 yards and landed at the 1 yard line and just like stopped on a dime. He had a couple boots over 50, but
they weren't not a lot of hang time though.
No, there wasn't. He didn't have the hang time, but he kicked them over the head of the returner twice, which to me into the wind both times, which says something about his power. But no, they didn't quite have the same hang time they sometimes do. And they weren't able to free up Janarian Grant, the returner, we're all excited to see. But you can see the potential in Janarian Grant because even with no blocking whatsoever, he found little gaps and made the most of every return.
Yeah,
he will break one of those at some point.
I think exactly. If you look at it, like I kind of was sided with, he could do 23 yards per average in his sleep, and he did.
Right.
So
exactly.
I was like, okay.
That.
I mean, look, that's okay. I'll take that level of, that level of efficiency as your base level. He didn't. I mean, he's brand new. He didn't show a gear, so I am excited to see if we can get him to show a gear. But if you're just going to average 23, I mean that'll probably lead the league.
Yeah, it's even without much else. He's an exciting returner to watch. So I haven't given up on him by any means. But it's funny because I thought the special teams play would have to be kind of what carried the team a little bit, but instead it was the offense really pulling more than their weight tonight, and the defense doing everything they needed to do.
Yeah, and I thought Wint McManus absolutely willed that defense. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Saskatchewan game in Halifax.
Like 2 years ago,
where he was just like just single-handedly, he's like, I am going to make every tackle on the field. I'm going to make every special teams tackle. I'm going to make every underneath tackle. I'm going to make every running play tackle. And we are not losing this game. You could just, you could just feel it on the field that he was like, an absolute destructive force. He was everywhere in the second half.
And
where did all those special teams tackles come from?
I know. He was at the first man down on specials. I was like looking with my binoculars, like, who's that? That's McManus down there, first man down on specials.
Yeah, he was just like, we are not losing this game, and he just willed that defense into into doing it. And, he showed the secondary, because I saw one hit, I said, oh my God, that's a good hit, And then, of course, it was McManus who had crushed some poor BC receiver.
And he was playing almost exclusively in the middle. When Jonathan Jones went down, Fraser Sopik had to step in at the will spot. And so McManus was out there. And then McManus went down briefly. That made me nervous. When he took a knee
he almost had that pick and he came down.
Yeah, he looked like he landed awkwardly maybe, but we'll see.
No, he was unbelievable. I thought he was unbelievable tonight. Just, obviously Brinkman was fantastic, and we could talk about that, and Flo, but I mean, you just couldn't take your eyes off McManus in the second half. He just was not running plays. He was just running, I'm going to stop the BC Lions.
Let's go to players of the game and plays of the game. And I'll start first with player of the game. I have a feeling you're going to go on the defensive side of the ball, where there are 3 at least worthy candidates. So I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I'm giving the player of the game award to Cameron Dukes because while he didn't single-handedly win the game, what the Argos needed him to do is not lose the game, and he did way more than that. 3 touchdown passes, again, with a over 75% completions. That is so much more than you would expect for a quarterback in his situation, starting his first meaningful game. 250 yards, adds some yards on the ground, another touchdown rushing, responsible for 4 Argos touchdowns. In this situation, if this is Chad Kelly, maybe he doesn't get player of the game with those numbers, but he might. They're that good. Cameron Dukes gets my player of the game honors. Who is your player of the game, JB?
Well, again, I often, I say this. I could give it to McManus, but let's just say he's the default player of the game every time.
Yeah.
And I am going to give it to Brinkman. I thought that Jared Brinkman was incredible. He absolutely came up huge in, because not every sack is equally valuable. And the fact that they came up with these second and third down sacks that brought the end to drives, and his elite first step and his physical strength for an undersized inside guy, are just tremendous.
And it wasn't always strength. Sometimes it was
sacks.
Sometimes it was speed. There was one sack he had where he was playing the nose spot, and he just made Couture whiff entirely. Couture didn't even touch him, and he flew back there and sacked Adams.
That was we talked about it when we signed him. His first step is absolutely elite. If he were bigger, he would be playing in the NFL for sure.
Yeah. And I think we can probably shout out Jake Serezna, who had a great game. You can obviously win to McManus as well. I thought Robbie Smith played a good game, very quietly, so only 3 tackles, but I thought he was in there a lot. He was causing pressure. The thing is, teams are going to have to decide who they double, and they didn't double Brinkman a lot tonight, and they paid for it. They were doubling Serezna a ton, but that frees up Flo, and he had a really good game on the outside.
And especially if you get into that fourth quarter, and if Flo hasn't been if we haven't had to rely on him, he was just way too fast for anybody on that offensive line.
And for play of the game, for me, I'm going to give my play of the game to a defensive guy. My play of the game was Mason Pierce coming 40 yards across the field, diving fully outstretched to knock that ball away. That play I talked about to Alex Hollins that could have been a real difference maker. There's a ton of moments where this game changed with all those lead changes, but that was one for me where I thought that, that's got to be my play of the game.
I figures an offensive guy would get the play wrong. No, the play of the game was the Amos pick. The Amos pick with about 5 minutes left to go changed the game.
How creative of you to choose an interception as a play of the game.
Well, in defense, we tend to choose the things that are correct. We don't just make up various criteria for why something is good. The pick would change the game. They scored a touchdown, then they were able to get the field goal, and it felt like that game was about to spiral out of control after the, it was a little kind of pumpkin midnight vibe. And, and it was a great pick, and flipped it, had the crowd back on board, and changed the game.
Well, that will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction pod. Look for our bye week pod coming midweek as the Argos now headed 1-0 into their bye. The next game, of course, is at home against the Edmonton Elks, who come in.
What a tasty follow-up game.
Well, it's all of the former Argos because you've got Javon Leake, you've got Boris Beatty, you've got Curly Gittins Jr. There's so many. Chris Jones, obviously, as well.
I'm
so
really
many
looking
guys coming
forward
back.
to the reception MBT gets. I think it's going to be a really nice way for the fans to recognize him like on the field.
Yeah, I hope there's I think there will be a big ovation. Everybody
I
loves
think there will be
McLeod
for
Bethel
sure.
Thompson. Yeah, this is a player you can only love if he's played for your team, and so he'll get a big ovation. I'm excited to see him back here in a couple of weeks' time, and that's Saturday, June 22nd, a 7 p.m. start. The next home game. You got to find your way out here to BMO Field for that game, and you got to visit us at Something in the Water for pregame beforehand. Look for our bye week pod coming about midweek, but as I said, that will just about do it for us on this wrap-up. Again, from BMO Field, the final score, Toronto Argonauts 35, the BC Lions 27. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.